Well, my favorite cartoon is Invader Zim.
My favorite cartoon is Beck Mongolian Chop Squad.
So Hey Arnold is my favorite cartoon.
Probably would have to go with Gravity Falls.
One of my most favorite cartoons, personally, to me, is Batman Beyond.
One of my favorite cartoons growing up was Chowder.
My favorite cartoon is probably Ben 10.
When I was growing up, Cartoon Network was at its peak. You had shows like Dexter's Lab, Powerpuff Girls, Ed, Edd n Eddy, Courage the Cowardly Dog, Johnny Bravo, and Mike Lou and Og. Around the early 2000s, there was this new show coming out, and it was going to be a double feature. It was basically 2 shows in one. In the first half, they played this show called The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy, and then the second half would be Evil Con Carne. And I fell in love with the show.
I've always loved the concept of the future and stuff like that, and putting Batman in it makes it 10 times cooler. Having this weird futuristic aesthetic with Batman in it makes it 10 times cooler, you know?
Yeah, it's a really good show, and I have the first 2 volumes of it on DVD.
It's also the reason why I want to make cartoons now. When I first saw it on Hulu, I was really attached to the way it could blend 2D and 3D animation, and that always stuck with me, you know, and it really made me want to do that myself when I grew up. Well, I kind of decided not to do that because, you know, that's pretty hard. I still want to make cartoons. That's still my dream.
I guess the highlight of the series to me was right around as the series was winding down. My sister was getting into it at that point, and we were tuning into new episodes when it moved over to Disney XD.
It really knows how to balance what seriousness and actiony seriousness and comedy of just everything of a good cartoon.
I think the show has the greatest premise I have ever heard in any cartoon because there's so much potential you could do with it. The Grim Reaper was forced to be friends with Billy and Mandy forever by them losing a game of Limbo to them. So now he has to go on many adventures with the 2 kids in their town of Evansville.
And then came the Weirdmageddon trilogy, which was the finale of the series. Me and my sister were all caught up with the series, and we were watching the finale, seeing how it was all going to come together. And God, I remember when there was a long gap between the second and third part of the trilogy. I remember we even had to cancel going to karate school that day just so we can watch it live on Disney XD. And I remember feeling it was a really triumphant finale. Just everything just wrapped up nicely, and it was kind of emotional.
I first watched it, it wasn't exactly the best. The first couple of episodes, they were pretty bad. But once you get past the 5, you really get to see the character development, and you finally get to realize that they were more for foundation for you to actually understand the story. The main thing that draws me to the show is the music, I would say. The music is more like Japanese rock because it is an anime.
Why I like Chowder is because he's a guy and he's funny and he likes to eat a lot, and I like to eat a lot. I like the show because it's a show about cooking, and that's an interesting concept for a cartoon. My favorite characters from the show are I really like Schnitzel. How he says "rada rada rada." I really like Schnitzel. Chowder, he's funny.
My favorite episode is probably Walk of Doom because it's just the show at its best comedy wise, in my opinion. Especially since we had Zim as the comedic focus in that episode, and also Gur as the voice of reason. That doesn't really happen in the show that much.
I love the story world element building, how it started on Saturday morning, built on the week show, and then got to a level of just series of epic proportions from just season 1 and up, even going up to Alien Force and Ultimate Alien Omniverse, it's just a really good progressing story arc. I love the villains, I love the aliens, I love just the planets they go to, just the locations they go to, just the concepts they bring up. It's with different seasons bring a different villain, different episodes bring a very different feel. They just don't deal with aliens. They deal with sometimes they deal with actual robbers. Sometimes they deal with magic. Sometimes they deal with celestial godly beings. It's just a really good saga of overall good world building and action.
Like I said, I really love comic books and all that stuff. I love Spider-Man 2099, even though the cartoon was kind of meh. But to have the guy who made Batman the Animated Series, Tim Burton, and then have him come back and make a new show that takes place in the same canonical universe as Batman the Animated Series with a new Batman with the old Batman. It's the perfect concept.
The show is nuts. You could have an episode about Billy just possessing Mandy by just like lodging himself into her head. You have episodes about Billy befriending a giant meteor who wants their brains. You could have like Grim throwing away like mutant brownies, and next thing you know there's zombies around the whole world, and you have this character named Hostogado just destroying them. It's just, the show is just so much fun. You never know what you're gonna get.
I've been watching this show since I was really little in like reruns on Nicktoons Network. That was years and years ago when I was like 2 and 3 and 4 years old. I didn't really have a very strong sense of like role models. Like by the time I was in kindergarten, I had seen both of my parents break down and cry like little kids. I never really had like role models in the sense that I thought that my parents were like these infallible super beings, or really found any other sort of place to see that except on TV.
You follow a new Batman. It's not Bruce Wayne anymore. Well, he's still in the show, but you follow a new Batman. So this isn't the same character you're going to follow from the original show. Yes, you're going to have Bruce Wayne returning as, still somewhat Batman, but there's a new character you're going to follow, and he's not the typical Batman, that we know. He's more I wouldn't say childlike, but he doesn't have tendencies like Bruce Wayne. He has a life, he has family, he has things he obviously cares for more than just, himself or, just Robin.
I don't know, I really liked it, even though I don't really listen to any Japanese music. I really ended up loving the music. And they did change the music into English at some point. For like the fan dubs.
It really makes you want to make a superhero cartoon or like based off a comic. Like I know Ben 10 isn't really based on a comic, but it's definitely more based off of a comic book feel. Like, it has a lot of Jack Kirby references to it, like Jack Kirby being the creator of Spider-Man, well, one of the creators of Spider-Man, and big writers on him. But it has a very comic booky feel to it. Like even up to Omniverse, where it has a more of a comedic vibe from what Alien Force tried to do or what Ultimate Alien did. It really, really nails the hero feeling of it all.
One of my favorite memories of this show was when I was growing up, I was grim for Halloween. And I've never been excited for any Halloween besides this one, because still to this very day, Grim is my favorite character of all time. For some reason, I've never really related to a character as much as Grim.
In TV, these characters live in such a different reality that you have to set it to different circumstances, kind of. And and you do that subconsciously without even knowing it. You just understand, okay, this is the reality, these are the rules here, before you even understand that it's a different reality. Like, years before you realize that. When you set them to the different standards based on their circumstance versus your own, you can sort of see these almost like very, very upright, standing sort of people. When you're able to observe those sorts of characters without even understanding that they're constructions, because you don't understand that sort of thing in a conscious way.
I guess the more I think about it, I guess what drew me into it was probably just like the characters. I kind of see Dipper and Mabel being like me and my sister Chris. Like, we were siblings that really got along, and we had like a few squabbles here and there, but we always come back up. So seeing that kind of sibling representation is kind of refreshing. It's after seeing like constant shows having like siblings being like at each other's throat. Like, it was really it was sort of like a breath of fresh air. Like, I know there were other cartoons, but like that had that, but that's like the main characters. It was just nice.
The way I feel like I relate to Grimm was, I always felt like I was like menacing, but like I'm not really. I'm actually pretty fucking pathetic, and I am ruled by like my brother and sister. My brother and sister were kind of like Billy and Mandy, and they kind of ruled over me, even though I was their older brother. And even when I'm older, I can still like relate to Grimm like a lot more.
My favorite thing about the show, I would say, is more like the character development. So the show is about a kid. He's in high school, and he basically, well, at this point, he's actually in middle school, and he meets this guy. He's kind of like a role model for him the entire way through, and he just looks up to him the entire time, and he teaches him how to be passionate about music. And in the beginning, you really don't like the main character. His name is Koyuki. You know, he's really annoying, honestly. But then later in the show, you can see him start to mature, and you can see him start to become someone who's honestly just passionate about what they love doing.
You can sort of see how you're supposed to behave, and that's what TV did for me, and specifically the show Hey Arnold, which is my favorite, which is why I consider it my favorite cartoon of all time. It, you know, showed me how you're supposed to treat people, how you're supposed to let them treat you, that you're supposed to try to put yourself in their shoes to really understand them.
And it has really telling stories. It's a really heart emotional story. Like they bring up Mr. Freeze with a news story about him losing, having heartbreak again, and turning out that no one really likes him, and he becomes Mr. Freeze again. It's really sad and kind of typical, but it's actually really interesting. You see new villains come to the show, like this radioactive dude who's like some business corporation dude.
Every episode, you never know what you're gonna get. There's always something like cool or funny that's gonna happen. You could have them feeding brains to this giant meteor who grows every time he eats a brain, and he sings this really catchy song. Or you can have like Billy like turning himself into chocolate by eating a bunch of chocolate sailors, and he ends up eating himself to death. It takes things that are seen as like scary or supernatural and gives humor to it, because that's something I've always like added to like my life. Taking something that could be seen as either dark and just adding like humor to it. That always resonated with me. And I feel like that's how like everyone should be in their lives. Just add a little humor into your dark life, I guess.
Honestly, it's one of my favorite shows. It's what got me into music, and I really ended up liking it. I always come back to it every now and then, just to remind me of why I even feel.
And that's a better way to solve your problems than to fucking, I don't know, be a fucking grumpy asshole all the time and hate everybody.